And we're live, Madam Mayor.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this special council meeting of December 7th, the Town of Lincoln, to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandra Easton, Mayor of the Town of Lincoln and Chair of today's special council meeting. We're meeting electronically through Zoom during this declared emergency period. Members of the public may observe the proceedings by accessing the live webcast at our YouTube channel. The Shononton people have called these lands home for thousands of years, and more recently, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee have been sharing the land as one dish, one spoon treaty territory. We would like to acknowledge the enduring resilience of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who call this territory home. Madam Clerk, would you please complete a roll call so that we can confirm attendance as we're holding this meeting electronically, and also to confirm quorum?
Thank you. Mayor Easton,
Here.
Councillor Rajima,
Here.
Councillor Russell,
Here.
Councillor McPherson,
Here.
Councillor Miklick,
Here.
Councillor Timmers,
Here.
Councillor Reimer,
Here.
and Councillor Patrick Riva and Councillor Brunet send their regrets. Madam Mayor, we have quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. In addition, I would like to take a moment to welcome the staff we have joining us today electronically. Chief Administrative Officer Michael Kirkopoulos, Finance Treasurer Terry Trewalla, Director of Planning and Development Kathleen Dale, Director of Community Services Shannon Mackay, Fire Chief Greg Hudson, Director of Economic Development and Communications Paul Deani, Director of Public Works Dave Graham, Manager of Corporate Communications Liliana Busnello, Corporate Customer Service Administrator Deanna Phillips, and we also have IT staff in attendance. And moderating and clerking the meeting today, we have our Town Clerk Julie Kirkolos. Also joining us this evening is Regional Councillor Foster, Rob Foster from Niagara Region. We have John Rocks from KPMG who will be attending the closed session tonight. And we have a delegation that has been received by Stephen Seuss. This is a virtual meeting, and I will ask that we follow some procedures during this meeting. Should there be a connection or a service disruption for the chair or a quorum is lost, the chair and our clerk will call a 10-minute recess to reconnect and to regain quorum. If quorum is lost, the meeting will be adjourned. If connection is lost from the chair, deputy mayor, or the vice chair will resume the meeting. Once reconnection is achieved, the chair will assume their role. Each member of council who wishes to speak, press the raise hand feature on your video call. The clerk will track the speakers list this evening and invite you to speak when I open for comments or questions. Also, when I finish reading a motion and announcing the mover and seconder, the clerk will then call out the vote by reading each member of council's name out loud. Please remember to take yourself off mute in advance during this portion of the meeting so that you can confirm if you are in support or opposed. Also, when not speaking, please remember to put yourselves on mute. Do any members have any amendments to the order of the agenda? Are there any declarations of interest? Are there any announcements by members? Please keep in mind you have a limit of 3 items. Do members have any announcements? CAO Kirkopoulos, do you have an announcement that you would like to make this evening?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't. I do want to be speaking a little bit to the COVID update a little later on in our agenda, but at this particular point in time, no.
All right, thank you very much. Council members, we're now considering items 7.1, special council minutes of November 16th, 2020. Do members of council have any questions or comments? Madam Clerk, I see no names, no hands raised. I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell and seconded by, we need a seconder, please.
Counselor Reimer,
Thank you. Approve the minutes of the following meetings of council, special council minutes of November 16th, 2020. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
thank you. Counselor McPherson,
Yes.
Counselor Micklick,
Yes.
Counselor Reimer,
Yes.
Counselor Regima,
Yes.
Counselor Russell,
Yes.
Counselor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Yes,
and that carries.
thank you, Madam Clerk. Council, we have one delegation this evening, as mentioned earlier, joining electronically. Please note that delegations may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. The clerk will be notifying you, Mr. Seuss, when your time limit has been reached. Our delegation is Stephen Seuss of Welland, speaking to correspondence received in the council information package of November 27th, 2020. This was a prior resolution that passed in Niagara Falls. Mr. Seuss, please go ahead, and remember you have 5 minutes. It's now 6:08.
Thank you for your indulgence, your worship. And okay. It won't let me start the video, but it's okay. So tonight, council, I'm here to present on a request that was passed through Niagara Falls City Council. And the request is that the Niagara Regional Council declare a state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addictions. And that received a unanimous vote at Niagara Falls Council. I wrote the motion in partnership with Councilor Wayne Campbell. It was moved and seconded, and it was a unanimous vote at Niagara Falls City Council. I then went and spoke with Thorold City Council last week, and I gave my presentation, and they also unanimously supported a request. So tonight I am looking for a request for council support from Lincoln to do the same. Request that Niagara Regional Council declare state of emergency on mental health, homelessness, and addiction. And a state of emergency, council, is not uncommon. There's a lot of precedent for states of emergency. There's been 2 emergencies declared on First Nations reserves in terms of clean drinking water. NPCA declared a state of emergency on climate. And of course, everybody knows about the COVID-19 state of emergency. Now, these are the numbers presently in the Niagara region. 625 homeless residents, 144 of those are children. Now, that count is from 2018 because we don't have an updated count because they had to cancel the Niagara Counts program for 2020 due to COVID-19, or the numbers would look a little different. This year, there were 475 overdoses reported by Niagara EMS. That's up from last year from 335 overdoses. So that's a big jump. And, you know, part of the motion is the lack of services or services being taken out of the smaller area municipalities, such as mental health. That's been affected, and COVID makes everything all the more difficult. So according to the 2008 Ontario Response Plan, municipalities are free to declare states of emergency for any intentional or non-intentional circumstance that relates to major proportions on life and property. I'm giving you the Coles Note version here, as I only have 5 minutes. When that happens, when a municipality declares an emergency, the PEOC has to monitor the situation. That is the Provincial Emergency Operations Center. And, you know, they have to act fast on the matter, and they have to coordinate with the municipality. This is very significant. And I would say that, you know, in mental health, homelessness, and addictions, any one of those areas, it has touched all of us in some way, shape, or form. And this motion is about many things. It's about acknowledgement. It's about having additional powers to set aside procurement bylaws, which the municipality gets in this situation. It's about going to the province and asking for additional funding so that we can have full services. You know, I heard small area municipalities say, we would like services right here in our city, and try to prevent people from having to travel long distances to access those services. Whether you're a rural municipality, whether you're an urban municipality, all these issues affect us. And councillors have stood up and they've told their stories, and it's very powerful. There's a documentary I'd like everyone to watch it on your own time, if you so would like to, and it's called At the Brink, and it looks at suicide in Niagara Falls. It certainly opened my eyes. And I do this because of my own lived experience. And I've heard people's stories. I've been a social service worker for 5 years. I've been in politics for almost a decade. So, you know, these issues, I see it every day. And so tonight I'm asking Town of Lincoln to stand with what Niagara Falls and Thorold has done, be a leader with us, and support the call for a state of emergency. The American government, the American federal government.
Mr. Seuss, I'm sorry, but you've exceeded your time limit now. I think you've made your case very well, and I'd like to be able to move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillors, this is item number 10 on the November 20th information, councillor information package. We will deal with it under item 9, item 9.3, as we go along through the agenda. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I believe we have a motion. I should ask first, though, are there any questions of council? Any members of council have any questions of the delegator?
We have
I see Councillor Jima, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. Seuss. I just wanted to clarify one of the statistics that you mentioned. I just have a question. You said that there were 475 overdoses last year and 335 this year. Is that 2020?
Thanks for the question, Councillor. It's 475 overdoses from January to September of 2020 and 335 overdoses from January to June of 2019.
That is significant and frightening. So my understanding is that we're going to be discussing this further on in the agenda. So that's my only question, but I thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Councillor.
Madam Clerk, do you see any other names? Any other hands up?
No, I don't.
All right. We have a motion. Do you have a mover and a seconder?
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor McPherson and Councillor Timmers to second.
All right. I have a motion moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Timmers. The council receive as information the delegation from Stephen Seuss. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Thank you. Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Regima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
and that carries. Thank you.
We'll move to item number 9, correspondence, and we're considering item 9.1 this evening from the CAO. We have the Town of Lincoln COVID-19 update. Mr. CAO, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to go over a copy of the memo that Council received earlier this week that highlights where we stand with respect to COVID-19 at this particular point in time. I thought it important to bring a little bit of attention to this matter and then to answer any questions Council may have. You'll notice in the memo that we do speak a little bit about what's been happening since the last time we were before Council. We were in front of Council on October 5th of 2020. So almost a month and a half since then. We do go into some information and some details relative to what we're hearing from a federal perspective in terms of border closures, which are expected to expire on December 21st, but every indication is that the border will remain closed beyond December 21st for all non-essential travel. On November 3rd, the province also released its response framework, which was the new color-coded 5-tier system, starting at prevent, protect, restrict, control, and lockdown. Niagara remains in the orange and has for the last number of weeks, which is the restrict level, and all of Ontario's 34 public health units are in some of those categories. We did begin in the prevent on November 3rd, moving to protect on November 7th, and as I said, we are in the restrict or orange level as of November 16th. I think it is important to highlight for members of council, we do continue to message and ensure that every effort is being made to ensure we don't move from restrict or orange to red. We have, as a municipality, made a decision early on to not take bookings from outside of our public health unit, so not taking bookings from outside of Niagara. As well, the team is starting to work with Niagara Region Public Health in terms of COVID-19 vaccine rollout preparations. So we've been asked to identify vaccine sites in our municipality and been given a number of criteria in terms of what's required so that when vaccines are received, each of the municipalities across Niagara will have locations so that those vaccines can be administered. From a regional perspective, Section 22 and the orders that have resulted as a result of the medical officer of health issuing that direction has caused, I think, some anxieties and some issues with some of our local restaurants. And I know Mr. Deaney and our economic development team have been working on those particular issues. And if council has any questions, we can speak to those. As I said, we continue to communicate collaboratively with Niagara Region, working across our lower tier municipalities to ensure information is getting out. And as well, I think as of December 11th, Dr. Hergy will be providing live stream updates to the public. And so I think you're seeing a lot of enhanced communication coming both from Niagara Region as well as the local area municipalities. We have had a few of our either users and or a staff member test positive. And so we're dealing with those issues. We're doing the necessary exposures and risk identification at our arenas and other locations. We're also actively screening now at each of our locations. And those are probably the updates I have, Madam Mayor. And so look forward to answering any questions council may have.
All right. Madam Clerk, I see Councillor Timmers. Please go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mary. Send through you to our CAO, Mr. Krikopoulos. Regarding the arenas, Mike, on the weekend when the user groups are coming in, what's happening with the screening, and is every person screened that walks through the door? And I also heard that there's security on site as well now. Could you just walk me through what happens when a large group shows up to play hockey? Or I'm just curious.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, your description's fairly accurate, councillor. We do have both security as well as our own staff doing active screening at the entrance of each of our arenas and at a number of our locations. I think what we were finding is that there were some issues with people adhering to the rules. And so we did take it upon ourselves, as a number of municipalities have, to ensure that we were being a little more proactive, a little more restrictive. Numbers are very clear in terms of who can access our facilities and not access them. And I think, like always, we've tried to take an education-based approach, even with both security and our own staff at each of the entrances. But sometimes education doesn't work. And so we're having to take a little bit more of a proactive and less education-based, and I think more information sharing approach. We haven't had to kick anybody out of our facilities yet. I know a lot of my colleagues around the region are facing those types of issues. Most times we're having serious and at times stern conversations, which we need to when you look at the type of issues that we're dealing with. But overall, I would say we're experiencing a lot of support for what we're doing and a lot of support from the majority of our residents and users of our facilities.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for that information, Mike. That's all my, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Councillor Mikulik?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to our CAO. Yeah, there's a, with the color system and the moving from one color to another in terms of restrict or protect and that thing. What, how much weight does a particular outbreak have on the numbers when making those decisions by public health? Like, let's take, for example, what happened at One Floral. This is a relatively isolated number. Like it appears a large number, but it's an isolated incident. How much weight does that have, like moving forward? Should we have to advocate for our position as far as where we feel as a municipality or a region, the level of concern we should be at?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that's a great question, councillor, and I think we're seeing a little bit of that in our neighboring municipalities. If we look at just what happened this past week with Waterloo Region, as well as Hamilton, both areas that when you were looking solely at the numbers had exceeded that threshold by which the Premier had set and the Premier's cabinet had set limits for moving from one color to another color. So either moving from red to a lockdown. That didn't occur because I think they were doing a little bit more detailed analysis of where those numbers were coming from. In a lot of those cases, they were long-term care homes, and so they were isolated to particular locations where the epidemiology of what we're seeing there, allowed a little bit more of a focused effort to try to keep it in control. It wasn't as much community spread as it was some of the issues we're seeing. I think when you look at One Floral and what happened in our community, you had about 48, I think, at its peak in terms of those, in terms of the number. That did push us up to that kind of threshold of moving from one color to the next. But again, I think both our own public health unit as well as the province are looking at those numbers. These are, I think, decisions that require a lot of analysis. Sometimes just looking at the numbers, which are a snapshot in time, aren't necessarily how public health's doing it. I know Niagara Region Public Health is trying to look at it holistically across the spectrum and really taking a very detailed and careful approach when they're looking at where the outbreaks are coming and is there community spread versus something that's isolated to a location.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. I appreciate that answer because numbers can be deceiving, and as long as we dive into the numbers and analyze the numbers and make proper decisions based on risk, let's use the word risk and actual risk. It could be a long-term healthcare center. It could, an outbreak occurs. However, the risk to the general public may not be so serious, given the confined spaces that some of these places operate in. So I appreciate that answer. Thank you.
I don't see any other speakers, Madam Clerk. Yes, I do. Councillor Njima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question to the CAO on page 12 of the report. No, I guess that would be page 2 of the report, 12 of the PDF. So on page 2 of the report, at the bottom, it says that commencing December 11th, 12 to 1 p.m., Dr. Hirji will be providing live stream updates to the public. I think that'll be quite a popular live stream. Do we know anything about where we can access that? Will it be on the region's website? And is it an interactive sort of event, or is it simply a live stream update?
Through you, Madam Mayor, well, I don't know the details of it, and I'll look to Regional Councillor and Mayor Easton and Foster if they've got any more insight. My understanding is it'll be live streamed on the region's website. In terms of the interactive portion of it, which would be a little bit more like a town hall, I know there have been conversations, but let me get back to you, Councillor, when I have a few more details on what that looks like, and we can also ensure that we're sharing that information as well.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Njima, I can tell you that we have had one session, and it was interactive amongst or between members of council, the mayors, and regional councillors, but there were not at that time any questions from the public, and I can't tell you whether that facility was available or not. We'll wait until we get to Councillor Foster's report, and we'll see if he knows something more. There was nothing at that session. We have another one on Friday, by the way. All right, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, this Friday.
Madam Clerk?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, do you have a mover for the motion?
I will call for a mover. And Councillor Russell?
Thank you, Councillor Russell. I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor Njima that correspondence from the CAO regarding Town of Lincoln COVID-19 update be received for information. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Thank you. Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Mickliffe?
Yes.
Councillor Reimer?
Yes.
Councillor Njima?
Yes.
Councillor Russell?
Yes.
Councillor Timmers?
Yes.
Mayor Easton?
Yes.
That carries.
Councillors, item number 10 is the file on council information. And we're now considering item 10.1, council information package of November 13th, 2020. If any councillor has items that they would like to discuss, please identify by number so that we can find our place. I'm looking for hands up on this one. All right, we'll consider then the week of November 20th. No hands, Madam Clerk. I would like to draw attention to item 15, which was a motion from the City of St. Catharines on the proposed changes to conservation authorities under Bill 229. I believe it's specifically 229, Section 6. And then item 16, which is the letter from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority regarding changes to Conservation Authorities Act and Conservation Authorities' role in land use planning, which includes some recommendations. If there isn't anyone else who, I'm going to ask again, just in case that may have jogged some considerations in people's minds. These are some pretty significant changes that are being made. Can I encourage anyone to raise their concerns? If not, then I'm going to ask the CAO Kirkopoulos. Oh, I do have Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Yes, both of these I think are very important that we discuss and perhaps support by motion. Both of these pieces, very important, affecting our conservation authorities and the changes to the conservation authorities as well is very concerning. So I would definitely be willing to motion that we support both of those.
All right, Madam Clerk, you can take that under advisement then. And in the meantime, I'd also like to hear from the CAO about any potential for further interpretation by staff.
So just before we move on, Councillor Timmers, you would like to move that we support the correspondence received from the City of St. Catharines regarding proposed changes to conservation authorities in Bill 229. And there is the motion there within, and you would also like to move to support the correspondence received Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, whereby they have a proposed resolution for municipalities at the back of that correspondence. Can we deal with the City of St. Catharines first? And if so, I will need a seconder for the City of St. Catharines motion, and I will call the vote for that particular one.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
I have Councillor Russell to support that. And I will call the vote. Let me just find my paper and we will carry on. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers, Councillor Russell to support the correspondence received from City of St. Catharines. And Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
and that's carried. We will now move to the proposed resolution received from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. Councillor Timmers, you will need a seconder for that one as well. Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Miklick, and I will call the vote.
Madam Clerk, the recommendations that have been made here, I'm wondering if we should have a little bit more information on some of those impacts. And that was the reason that I was looking for some clarity from the CAO and the possibility of a report. And is it appropriate, Madam Clerk, for me to continue to explain why I'm taking this position?
Sure. Can I just ask Councillor Timmers to withdraw her motion right now for the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority? And we will, if that's fair, Councillor Timmers, then we can go ahead and continue with the mayor and the CAO to explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Timmers. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Since we've received these, both of these communications, there has been really a growing concern being raised by a number of levels within government and non-government organizations. The most recent one that I was exposed to today came from the Canadian members of the Shoreline Resilience Advisory Council. This is a new committee that I sit on. It is a binational committee. However, today it was a member of the Canadian mayors that were meeting. And one of the mayors that participated was Mayor Sean Collier of Ajax. And he was describing to us some of the significant concerns that these changes would bring to the environmental surveillance, particularly around companies that have access to bypass rules for discharge into Lake Ontario. I won't go into great detail, but I do believe this is not something that we should pass over quickly. And I would like to hear, have more of an objective view from our staff so that we can make the right decision as we go forward. There may very well be issues in there that we need to support. There may be others that will lead to concerns in the short and long term. Madam Clerk, Mr. Kirkopoulos, if you could respond, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to you and to members of council. Staff were prepared actually to speak to this. I did have a conversation earlier with Ms. Dale from a land use planning perspective, and she'll probably take the lead on providing some comments, as well as Mr. Deaney and Mr. Graham in terms of any other conversations. I think, as council knows, changes to the Conservation Act and to the Conservation Authorities Act has triggered some concern from a number of conservation authorities across the province. It was announced as part of a broader 2020 Ontario budget. And so I think in deciphering that and pulling apart the various pieces, there's more and more concerns that have been raised. I know from the position of the Conservation Ontario, there's a number of changes in there that they feel could have some significant impact on conservation authorities. And I know that there is a report that the NPCA has also provided to municipalities to review. So I'm going to ask Kathleen, who has been taking notes and who is familiar with the various elements within the document, to speak to some of the issues that we discussed earlier today around the development approval process, some of the planning approvals and the streamlining processes that are highlighted, as well as a little bit on the value of conservation authorities and their role in preventing and managing the impacts of flooding and other natural hazards. Kathleen?
Madam Mayor, in regards to the proposed changes, staff have looked at them at a very, very high level. One of the items that they're proposing is that the Conservation Authority be only be composed of political members, whereas like in the town, for example, we actually have a private citizen that's on the Conservation Authority board. There's some issues in regards to fees, for example, for planning applications. We do collect review fees and technical report fees on behalf of the Conservation Authority for certain types of planning applications. So, I mean, now there's an appeal process for that. They can actually appeal to LPAT, whereas, for example, if we look at the town's fees and charges, if somebody doesn't agree with a fee, they can just, go to council. There's no reason to have that go to LPAT. And so it's really a waste of time. Okay, so one of the things that they're doing is, so the Conservation Authority, part of their role is to issue permits for, maybe it's an alteration to a floodplain, for example, a realigning of a creek. They usually impose conditions for those types of things. So now those items can actually be appealed to LPAT, whereas in the past, my understanding is that just would have went to the Conservation Authority board. Okay. One of the other things that they're proposing too is if you look at the municipality under the building code, for example, if we have somebody that proceeds without a building permit or issues a permit that's in contravention of the building code, our building staff can actually issue they can issue basically, a warning and a stop work order. It looks as though that authority is going to be taken away from the Conservation Authority, which really makes it hard to enforce some of their regulations, because they do have people that will fill things in. They might do shoreline protection without input and approval from their agency. So, I mean, they really do need that oversight. One of the other things that that's being changed is, currently, if a municipality makes a decision on a planning application, the Conservation Authority as a public agency can appeal our decision, or I should say not like the council decision. And really, as long as I can remember, we've never had the Conservation Authority ever have to appeal any of our decisions, because we do work well with the Conservation Authority, but there's always that there could be that odd situation out there where a local council makes a decision that doesn't comply with the appropriate legislation, and there's no recourse for the Conservation Authority. So these are kind of some of the highlights. So based on a lot of the changes, staff very much support the correspondence from the Conservation Authority.
Okay, thank you very much. That's helpful. Mr. Kirkopoulos, do you have anything to add?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think Kathleen touched on most of them, but a few other things that I think are causing a little bit of anxiousness out there. I think the changes that are proposed do give the minister the ability to issue permits, often what we refer to as minister's orders. And I think, another one, there's a desire to remove the reference to further the conservation, restoration, development, and management of natural resources from the objectives of the Conservation Authority. And so I think, again, Kathleen's talked about most of them. There are issues around the comprising of members from municipal councils in terms of the other changes, but I think we've covered primarily most of those that are causing a little bit of issues for people who are reading this, looking at it, and wondering what these changes potentially mean. I mean, I think the other one that I'd highlight is removing the ability for conservation authorities to expropriate land as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kirkopoulos. I see some hands, Madam Clerk.
We have Councillor Miklick.
Councillor Miklick, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mike Kirkopoulos or Kathleen Dale, just trying to understand what precipitated this whole conversation, from the provincial level. Typically, how long, let's say there's a stop work order, based on a conservation authority order. How long would a hearing typically take? Like, with regards to having a hearing and a possible continuation of that redevelopment or development. But let's say break wall, for example.
Kathleen, Ms. Dale?
It might not be a question you can ask readily.
Madam Mayor, to the councillor's question, it's probably difficult to provide an exact answer on that. I can probably just give you sort of similar experience relating to a building permit application. Our staff does go out and talk to people. If they don't get compliance, they issue the stop work order. If they don't comply with the order, they take them to court. I mean, that process could, if you don't get compliance, could take up to 6 months.
Yeah, appreciate that. And I'm just trying to get an understanding of what would start the conversation. And I'm taking it that perhaps each conservation authority is independently run and could have different timelines as well. And with this ministerial order, we don't know if they would be any quicker or if they would be longer. We don't know really what the plan is. So I'm just trying to get an idea of what possibly would have precipitated this whole conversation. So appreciate that. And that's all. Thank you.
Ms. Dale, Councillor Miklick, I don't want to put any more onus on Ms. Dale to answer that question, because a lot of the conversations that precipitated this were at a political level. Specifically during the last term of council, the regional council and the prior conservation authority board in Niagara. So I don't know if we can shed light on all of that. This whole situation is moving forward much more quickly than would lend itself to us having all the information. I think that's a fair statement. And so it's a matter of whether or not I see this as a matter of either we've already supported the City of St. Catharines motion, and the Conservation Authority documentation or their letter is really an attempt to provide us with their specific concerns and solutions to them. I don't know whether that helps you. I don't want to put you off, but it is difficult for us without the proper authorities in the room to go through all of the political toing and froing that went on during the last term of Regional Council and Conservation Authority.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that answer. I'm just trying to get an idea or understanding of the process and how long it could possibly take when having to deal with governing bodies, and if there's possibility of expediting that in the future when it comes to these sort of decisions, so that these kind of discussions don't need to occur. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Councillor Mikulik. Madam Clerk?
We have Councillor Regima up next.
Councillor Regima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I apologize, but I missed some of what you said just now, Madam Mayor, that may be relevant to my next question. But I thought I recalled discussing this at a previous meeting and that we were going to provide input. And a further question to that, is this part of the changes that are part of that omnibus bill that's on the go? And further to that, if so, is there a timeline for us to provide input as a council?
All right. There is, it is moving quickly, but I'm going to ask CAO Kirkopoulos to respond.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. So I believe it's gone through second reading, so it is moving fairly quickly. I don't think there's any official capacity for municipalities to provide input at this particular point in time. I know when I read the media releases from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, they've already suggested that they've gone through their form of extensive consultations. However, I think what you're seeing from a number of municipalities when the omnibus bill came forward, and this was highlighted in here, what you're seeing is that there is huge or significant opposition to Bill 229, and specifically Section 6 that speaks to this particular issue. So now you're seeing a lot of municipalities, I think, band together to pass motions like the one before you. You're seeing organizations like AMO, the big city mayors, conservation authorities, other not-for-profits, and I think a lot of residents, advocate or push for removal of Schedule 6 from Bill 229. And so I think there isn't a sort of public consultation, I think, as we're typically used to it, because this was part of a budget bill. There is no avenue for public consultation, and the government doesn't require it. And I think as a result of how it's come out and potentially how it's been rolled out at this particular point in time is why I think you're seeing, why you're seeing some of this, I think, anxiety in the community, Councillor.
Okay, thank you for that. So I guess what are our steps if we wanted to take steps? If we had concerns about this, how do we determine what concerns we have and what steps we should or shouldn't be taking as a municipality?
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Kirkopoulos?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Two things. I mean, staff can definitely report back in a more fulsome way on what the impacts of Schedule 6 and Bill 229 are. I think in terms of voicing any displeasure or opposition to this, what you're doing tonight is probably really what you could be doing and should be doing if that's indeed council's will, and that is to pass motions, whether it be what other municipalities are passing or to support existing motions that have been passed. So you are going through, I think, that appropriate process, but again, staff can report back in more detail on what the implications are. We can also share a lot of information. I know AMO's got some position papers and NPCA has shared some information as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I see Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Mary Stin. I think both of my questions were just answered now by our CAO regarding how we can give input and how we support. So it seems our best route is to pass a motion to support this letter from the Niagara, the Conservation Authority, and with all of the proposed resolutions that they've included. I do thank Kathleen Dale and our CAO for some clarity, but I think perhaps some kind of a report follow-up would be very, very useful, because there is a lot here. There's a lot of proposed changes. So just my comments, but for now, I definitely support a motion to support this.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands. Oh, I do. I see Councillor McPherson, who, by the way, was our representative, the Town of Lincoln representative on the Conservation Authority in the last term. Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just a question about timing and through you to Mr. CAO. So they have had the second reading, and thinking that this is moving fairly quickly, and that now that we're into the middle of December and heading into several meetings coming forward on budget and various other things on our agenda, and that really looking at the time for a more fulsome report versus a motion tonight to support what St. Catharines and the MPCA have put forward. I think, from where I stand, I think what's disturbing about this is the timing of what's come out here, and the lack of reaching out to municipalities and to the conservation authorities for input. And I think that alone would prompt a pause and a suggestion to the province that, wait a minute, this is not, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and, you're going to basically hide this within a budget. The changes are significant enough that you really should be leaning on your municipalities and your conservation authorities for input on this. So I would, I guess, question through you, Madam Mayor, to the CAO, the time we would have for a full report, and secondly, would that change our position?
Thank you very much, Councillor. Mr. Kokopoulos.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. I do know that it did start third reading debate today, so that likely will go on for a few days. I mean, I think at the end of the day, council has an opportunity here, and I don't think necessarily that the motion you passed tonight is tied to the report. I think what staff will do is bring back a report that lays out these particular changes. And I don't think there's a problem in supporting the MPCA letter, and that we would come back. I think, Councillor, to your point, January would probably be the absolute earliest that we would be able to come back with this report, just looking at the various elements of this. But I don't think from a staff perspective, you'd see staff necessarily changing their position. I think both Ms. Dale, myself, Mr. Deaney, Mr. Graham have all highlighted that we support the particular motion in terms of, especially when you look at some of the items in there, a longer implementation period to 2022, for instance, to give us that time that you highlight. I do suspect that the passing of this bill likely happens in the next 2 weeks, again, with kind of the toing and froing and the number of times folks will be sitting. 2 weeks, does take us to a few other meetings, but I think it would be hard for us to come back with something that would give council the level of detailed analysis, short of sharing information and positions from AMO and other organizations.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. All right, Madam Clerk.
Thank
I
you.
don't see any other hands.
No, but we do have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers to endorse the resolution put forward by Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, and to endorse their correspondence. I do need a seconder for that.
I believe you have Deputy Mayor McLeod.
Okay, I saw Councillor McPherson put his hand up.
I had actually written, when you asked the question earlier, I had written down Deputy Mayor Mikulik,
Okay.
Councillor Mikulik.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Timmers, seconded by Councillor Mikulik. Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Mikulik,
Yeah.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Support.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
and that carries.
All right, thank you very much, councillors and staff, for that discussion. We move on to item 9.3. And just give me one moment, please. Sorry, 10.3, I guess this is. Well, on the script, it's 10.3. So council information package of November 27th, 2020. First I'll ask if there are any items, and please mention them by number. And I see Councillor Mikulik, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was hoping we could look at item, I believe it's number 4.
City of Belleville?
No. Are we talking about November 23rd to 27th or no? We're not there yet?
I'm sorry, that's my fault. Yes, we are. We are. We're dealing with the week of November 23rd to 27th, yes.
So item 4, Councillor Mikulik, is the Niagara Regional Transit NRT on demand.
Yeah, so what I wanted to bring forward was I don't have the actual, I can only do so much here. I don't have the actual, but on page 7 of a report, LNTC C4 2020 on table 3, I think it's on page 10 of 321 in that council correspondence. There's table number 3 with municipal residential impact from transfer to one regional levy. And, you know, the numbers go from 2021, 265,829, 2022, 265,829, 2023, 284,764, and then 2024, 558,207, and then 2025, 962,027. So I asked a question earlier with regards to an explanation of those numbers, how they come about, and the real increases that I'm seeing. Like, you know, is there any way to get further clarification on that? And
Councillor,
numbers.
could you? I'm sorry. Was there something additional?
No.
All right. Deputy Mayor, did you ask that question at another meeting and now you're looking for an explanation? Is that correct?
I sent an email earlier today to staff.
Okay. All right. Mr. Kirkopoulos?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Councillor Mikulik did send an email earlier to staff, and I think both Mr. Walla, Director Graham, and myself did reply to a number of the councillor's questions. So I will let each of them address, I think, a few of the comments. But the councillor was asking around the financials and what the impact would be to local area municipalities, and our treasurer did highlight that the recommended financial strategy that the region is looking at would be that the region would be levying dollars for transit, not local area municipalities. And I think we characterize that as similar, if not exactly, like the region does now with waste levies. But I'll let Ms. Terwala maybe take council a little bit through that and highlight some of the other points she had for Councillor Mikulik.
Ms. Terwala?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, that's the funding strategy that the region's recommending, that any levy component that local area municipalities currently contribute to transit would be transferred to this new commission, and any increases in the future would be directly levied to the taxpayers. As for the amount of the increase over time, that's more based on the region's financial team and their estimated costs going into the future. My understanding is that they are anticipating expanding the service so that all local area municipalities will have some form of transit service going forward, and it'll go from there.
Councillor Mikulek?
I appreciate that response. The question I have to the CAO is, who negotiates on our behalf as a municipality those numbers, those rates? How are they deduced? How do we push back and say, wait a second, this seems like a lot? Or do we say to ourselves, this is a good deal? How do we determine those numbers as a municipality as to the fairness of the proportionate appropriation of it?
Okay, Mr. Kirkopoulos?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I could. So a couple of things for council consideration. The region is coming in the new year to committee, and they're going to be speaking to this. They do have to go to each of the municipalities. They do have to seek support from each of the municipalities before this moves forward. There isn't really a negotiating of sorts happening at this particular time. These are projections in this particular report, and the region is doing calculations on the delivery of service, both the uploading of service, both from an operating perspective and a capital infrastructure perspective. And so these are their projections. They can change. I think there's an ability for both staff through council direction and council when the region is here to voice both their concerns or issues to council or to the region when they're indeed here. So there will be opportunities for us to speak to it again. I don't necessarily want to call it a negotiation, Councillor Mikulek, because I don't know what that potentially looks like. In a very, I think, fundamental or operational way, the region approves these through their annual budget, and so there is there's a flexibility in them in terms of how the region's looking at it. But I think as they go from municipality to municipality and determine what is required and what the, I think, appetite and feedback is, we'll probably know a little bit more.
Okay. Thank you very much. I look forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up to the Deputy Mayor. So that really the numbers attributed to each individual municipality are not necessarily consequential. It's the total number that would be rolled up into the regional operational budget. Is that correct, Mr. CAO?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the council, that's correct, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I don't see any other names, Madam Clerk. Is there, these are questions, no motion forthcoming on this issue. However, I would just draw your attention to item number 10. Is it? I'm looking for the City of Niagara Falls resolution, Madam Clerk, and the copy that I have has number 10 on it. That was probably number 10, the Niagara Falls meeting.
It's actually item 1 on our end.
Okay. So item number 1, which was the subject of Mr. Sue's delegation this evening. In order to address that specifically, we would need a motion.
Correct.
Councillor Russell first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I make a motion to have staff go back and see if they can find out some active data on the 3 topics that Mr. Seuss attributed to? Mental health is a very broad spectrum, obviously, but with overdoses and homelessness, is there a possibility that staff can gather more updated data and present it to council so we can make a decision.
Madam Clerk? Mr. Kirkopoulos?
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, maybe staff can definitely work with our regional partners who are, in a lot of cases, the service providers or the service, I think, contract administrators in a few of these cases. And of course, reach out to the number of agencies that we currently work with, whether it be Pathstone or others, Community Care of West Niagara, Village of Hope, in terms of, and come back, I think, with an overview or at least some data for council consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Is that satisfactory, Councillor?
Yes. Madam
All
Clerk.
right.
I just,
And Council,
sorry, I just wanted to clarify something. So Councillor Russell, you asked to move that in a motion, that staff be directed to work with the local organizations as well as the regional staff and come back with an update.
Yes, please.
Is that fair?
Yes, please.
Okay, so because you've asked to put that in a motion, can I get a seconder on that? Councillor Reimer? And Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Miklick?
Yes.
Councillor Reimer?
Yes.
Councillor Rajima?
Madam Clerk, can I speak to that motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, I just wanted to mention, and we've talked about this before, but there were several months there where Councillor Timmers and I and Director McKay and Sarah Ann met and spoke with a lot of service providers around Lincoln and beyond Lincoln in Niagara generally regarding vulnerable persons and existing services. And we are expecting a report to come to council. I'm not sure when that's coming, but it may be that what we're asking for may be already contained in that report. I believe it probably will be. So I guess one question I have is, I mean, I'm going to support this motion for sure, but I wanted to bring that up and say that it may already be coming to us. I don't know what the timing is for that report.
Okay.
thank you very much, Councillor.
I'll just finish with this. So Councillor Rajima, I have you as yes in support of that.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Russell?
Yes.
Councillor Timmers?
Support.
Mayor Easton?
Support.
And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have a number of items from standing committees. We have,
Madam Mayor,
yes.
we need a motion to move the council information packages as a whole. So
Oh, yes, right.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Miklick, seconded by Councillor Timmers, that we receive and file the following council information packages of November 13th, 2020, November 20th, 2020, and November 27th, 2020. And I'll call the vote, Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Miklick?
Yes.
Councillor Reimer?
Yes.
Councillor Rajima?
Yep.
Councillor Russell?
Yes.
Councillor Timmers?
Support.
Mayor Easton?
Support.
And that carries. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on then to recommendations from standing committees. And we're looking at 11.1 through to 11.4. Is there anything to consider in the Committee of the Whole minutes of November 18th, 2020? And item 11.2, Committee of the Whole workshop minutes of November 23rd, 2020. 11.3, Committee of the Whole minutes of November 30th, 2020. And 11.4, Committee of the Whole budget minutes of December 2nd, 2020. Any comments? There being no comments or questions, Madam Clerk, I have a motion moved by Councillor McPherson and seconded by Councillor Reimer approve the following recommendations from Standing Committee. Committee of the Whole minutes of November 18th, 2020, Committee of the Whole workshop minutes of November 23rd, 2020, Committee of the minutes of November 30th, 2020, Committee of the Whole budget minutes of December 2nd, 2020. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor McLeod,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Or,
Mayor Easton.
Or
Thank you, and that carries.
item number 12, councillors, is reports of municipal officers. And this evening we have the mayor's report and a report from our regional member, Councillor Foster. And I have my formal report to the residents, councillors, and then I have a comment about a celebration that I attended at the end of the day regarding the 50th anniversary of the Commission on the Status of Women in Canada. Good evening, residents of Lincoln, and thank you for inviting us into your homes for this December 7th council meeting. Looking back at the past 2 weeks, we have many areas of interest beyond our daily work, and that generally means that we're seeking information and support for special projects to keep Lincoln sustainable and resilient in these challenging times. This past weekend, the new cases of COVID rose by 65 new cases. We seem to be hovering in the orange at the border of red, which is concerning for all Lincoln and Niagara businesses. Specifically, this concern comes from the record of the communities that are outside of Niagara around us in the GTHA. The largest drivers of cases remaining high in Niagara include the following. Number one, persons continuing to have active social lives with many close contacts, leading to infections spreading through a large social network. Provincial guidance since October 2nd and advice since late September has been that people should limit their in-person social interactions to just their own households. Restaurants and other venues where people congregate socially is a prime driver of this spread, where people often socialize beyond their households. Number two, persons continuing to go about their social interaction and attending work despite having some symptoms of illness. This is leading to infections spreading to many more people. People must isolate at the first signs of infection, even mild symptoms, such as a runny nose or a sore throat, nasal congestion, to ensure that they are not spreading an infection around, and you need to get tested. Workplaces must actively screen their employees for symptoms to ensure they are not allowing an ill person into the workplace. Public Health has been advocating to the province for better enforcement of existing rules in order to avoid needing to institute new rules if cases rise further. And that leads me to the economy and what we can do. More than ever, we can understand and commit ourselves to the shoplincoln.ca mantra, as well as keep our expenditures within the Niagara borders. At no other time has this message been more important. It is very important that we all continue to adhere to the Niagara public health measures, and while we stress this message of caution, because of the serious implications of further lockdowns, it is essential that we prepare ourselves for a modest Christmas celebration to ensure that all of our family members are safe and as free from worry as we can achieve through planning and high compliance. I was pleased to present a check to the Lincoln Community Fund of the Niagara Community Foundation, which represented the mayor's share of the 2020 golf tournament. All charities are suffering from a lack of ability to engage in their usual exciting fundraising activities, and this decision was made to support as many Lincoln programs as possible through the foundation. Together as a council, we completed the celebrations for the 50th anniversary 50 Faces of Lincoln. They became 5 intimate, safe gatherings with a great deal of local sharing of relationships and stories and no shortage of folklore. Although our anniversary celebrations did take a turn with COVID, we've been able to pivot in ways that ensured we could gather as a community in a safe and still very enjoyable environment. Our staff applied creativity, they applied positive, hopeful outlook, and a sense of supporting community. That reworking of the fun factor was also shared on November 28th, when we came together with a full flight of families, decorated vehicles, children in their colorful jammies, lots of Christmas hats, many toys, many children packed into vehicles. It was quite exciting. And the council and staff and CAO shared our Christmas greetings with them, with everyone who participated. And it really was fun, probably much more personal than if we'd all been standing around the Christmas tree. And the tree is pretty beautiful, still there for you to see at the Fleming Center. I want to thank Hortons. They were the major sponsors, the Lincoln Public Library System, Lincoln Fire Service, and also we saw the Canada Games turtle, the mascot, roaming around as well. It was great weather and a load of fun for everybody. I think it went over well. And if you didn't attend the tree lighting, because we were giving out beautiful red 50th anniversary Christmas balls, you can arrange for your own beautiful Christmas memento, your 50th anniversary memento, by calling 563-7242. I know there's an extension in there somewhere, but I can't remember what it is. So somebody wants to tell me, I'll call it out. But call the main number and that will get you connected. I wish to acknowledge the Ward 1 virtual meeting. It was the first of its kind. And thank all community members who participated electronically. Social media options and direct contact remain with all ward councillors in the mayor's office. We're all open and available to you, and we remain open for business with the staff working in every sector and at your service. Council continues with our budget planning for 2021, and currently we stand at 0% increase in the levy for capital projects alone. With the approval of the minutes tonight, the infrastructure levy, it has been set at 1%, and that will help us to sustain reserves. We continue to focus on shovel-ready projects that will be supported by provincial and federal infrastructure project dollars, and we're starting to hear more and more about that every week. Staff continue to pursue support for capital projects, and last week Council was advised of a $600,000 plus grant, provincial grant, which will be held in reserves, and we weren't budgeting for this, and so this is very good news indeed. Starting later this month and into January, we'll be moving into our operating budget. I wish to acknowledge the continued efforts by council and staff, along with our partners with NRPS, Niagara Regional Police Services, and their speeding surveillance efforts, as well as the commercial vehicle monitoring and efforts by MTO to limit trucks who have no business in Lincoln but attempt to avoid the weigh scales. I want to remind there are a number of efforts underway with Niagara Region Transportation and Lincoln Public Works to ensure that we maximize traffic monitoring activities both at King Street and Ontario Street, as well as on our urban streets. The site alteration bylaw has been approved, and it will serve through a Lincoln bylaw to limit external trucks using our roads to transport soil from outside Lincoln and the region, specifically from the GTHA. There is a process, there are rules to follow, and we expect that to happen now on a regular basis. And I think it's interesting to note that whereas the gravel trucks pay a significant, but of course never enough, levy to all municipalities for the heavy use of roads, that these trucks that are coming in to our community from outside are not subject to that same levy, and yet there is significant wear and tear on our roads. The Councillor Task Force on Housing has made significant progress in cooperation with like-minded agencies, and we expect to bring a more definitive report that is project-based in the new year. Sadly, I, with Mr. Krikopoulos and staff member Richard Sage, visited with some of the farm workers at the Tory Warner farm last week to acknowledge the untimely death of one of their colleagues, a gentleman from Grenada. At this time, I would like to acknowledge all farm workers and those who travel to us from offshore to help support our farmers and the high quality of fruit, vegetables, horticulture, greenhouse, and winery production in Lincoln. More than ever, food safety is important, as is high productivity for Lincoln and Niagara, as well as jobs of which the health and prosperity of our community is a vital component. As always, I remind you that you live in Lincoln, where everyone strives to be a good neighbor, where children are encouraged to achieve their very best. We appreciate your interest and participation in local government. Please continue to share your views on the 2021 budget with us by completing the survey on www.lincoln.ca. It is our pleasure to serve you. And in addition, council members, as I noted earlier, today the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, Elizabeth Dowdeswell, held a special anniversary celebration. She had a number of speakers, and the invitees were the women mayors of Ontario. I'll remind you that the Lieutenant Governor's office is an apolitical entity, but as her honor noted, she keeps an eye on matters by bearing witness to what's going on in our province, by providing opportunities so that we can all share information. She just happens to be using the women mayors as a conduit at the moment. And she also seeks open hearts and minds so that important issues of the day are brought forward. I wanted to simply advise you, the session was moderated by Lisa LaFlamme, who's the senior editor of CTV National News. We actually had a look at the circumstances around the commission and some of the successes and failures. You might be interested to know that one of the items that was on the agenda 50 years ago is a national child care action. Hasn't happened and may be coming, but some of these women didn't seem to be too hopeful. Monique Bégin, who is happened to be the secretary to the Royal Commission on the Status of Women in Canada in 1967, she is best known for her support of the Canada Health Act. She spoke today. Maureen O'Neill, who is the former president of the Canadian Foundation of Healthcare Improvement, talked about the abortion caravans that were very popular at that time. She was very active with some of the active men of the day. Robert Andrews, Mark Lalonde was another one who was active in getting things on the agenda. The Honorable Lorna Marsden also spoke. She was a former politician and senator. She indicated that the report tells us what was happening in the 20th century, and for no other reason, it should be seen as a vital document. It provided an agenda, and Laura Sabia, who is known to us in this area, and Judy LaMarche, also from our general areas, were very, very active. The public hearings were very important, and there's 500 pages in the report, but it's probably worth the read. The greatest advocates were the ministers who had daughters, so I think that's pretty important. Some of them noted Roberta Jameson. She was the first Nations woman to achieve a law degree. She spoke today as well. She said that the report didn't have much in it on First Nations, Black, or Inuit or Métis concerns. There were only a few briefs that Indigenous women concerns, which lost women their rights under the Act if they married a non-Indigenous man. Jean Augustine was part of the Liberal Women's Caucus. She was the first Black woman in Parliament, in the Parliament of Canada. And in 1970, for interest, there was only one woman MP, and there were only 6 senators. The senators are now completely split, 50-50, 47-47. So I bring this all to you because you may not hear about it otherwise. As the Lieutenant Governor pointed out, COVID has laid bare the healthcare is certainly not a women's issue. There are many men.
Madam Mayor, your connection is
And
quite spotty.
oh, and we need to, and we also need to correct some of these problems so that we can have a productive economy. I thank you for your indulgence, Council. I feel that these issues, when they come up, are important to share. Thank you very much. That completes my report, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Since we need a mover and a seconder, those absent have moved it and seconded. So Councillor Timmers, you are moving it. May I have a seconder, please? And I see Councillor Russell. Okay. Thank you. And I'll call the vote. Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miklick.
Yes.
Councillor Reimer.
Yes.
Councillor Rajima.
Yes.
Councillor Russell.
Yes.
Councillor Timmers.
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
And that carries to receive and files information, the mayor's report on December 7th, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And we'll now move on to item 12.2, the Regional Councillor update. Thank you very much, Councillor Foster, for joining us, and please proceed.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. So a few things and just a couple of comments on some of your earlier discussions. Yeah, Dr. Hergy is going to be in discussions on this upcoming Friday. Regional Council had a significant discussion with Dr. Hergy on communication and information that's going out into the community. He was doing a really good job through some of the local media, but the problem is that at least one of them now has a pay piece in front of it, and some people aren't getting their information that they may have been getting. But anyway, we had recommended strongly that we have a meeting every 2 weeks with Regional Council as well as the other outreach. So to answer the question that Councillor Njima did, no, I do not believe there's going to be questions from members. However, you know, please during the time, if there is something that you want asked, you know, fire it to Mayor Easton or myself, and I'm relatively confident we can put that question in and through for you. So. The other thing that was talked about, I'm glad you guys are discussing the information that came from the NPCA. AMO has taken a very strong view on this as well, and it really comes down to communication and lack thereof as to what has been happening in that particular area. There's lots of good reports. I'm going to fire a few over to your CAO so they can be used and distributed to you as well. What I would say, oh, by the way, the one thing that I'm surprised, we did pass a motion at Regional Council supporting the NPCA motion. That was done on November the 19th. It was supposed to have been sent to all the lower tier municipalities, so I'm surprised you don't have that correspondence, but anyway, that went on at the region. And the other thing that was discussed was about Mr. Seuss's public health questions on mental health. And if there's any questions that you guys want raised at public health, both myself, I believe Mary Easton, you're on the public health committee as well. So
I am not,
You're not?
Counselor.
oh,
No.
oh, I'm mistaken.
I just have a lot of comments.
Yeah. When Mary Easton shows up, we worry. But if you have any questions specifically or any information that you want, please email me and I'll bring it up at committee meeting tomorrow. So I was in kind of a wordy mood when I produced my report for you guys for tonight. And I was sort of sitting back saying, oh my goodness, we're 2 years through this election cycle that we've been on, and there's definitely challenges in the last year. I'd say certainly would be an understatement. I provided just a little background to in my report, just talking about the various things that the region do the region does. My English not so good. There's a variety of things that the region does have, but the consistent thing with them is that they're all very big ticket items when it comes to the costs that go on with these items. We've talked about the wastewater treatment plant that's going to be built in Niagara Falls. That's $320 million to begin with. It's an expense that a municipality by itself has a very difficult time dealing with. Even the cost of police, the EMS services in and across Niagara, et cetera, et cetera. So the bottom line is that there's some fairly significant dollars that go on. The budget this upcoming year for Niagara region is $1.4 billion that we're looking at this point. So the amounts are not insignificant. And just to go to Councillor Mikulic's comments about NRT and the dollars being moved around, I'm glad you're going to be looking at that closely. I'm a strong believer of myself with this, is if there's no service, then there must be a fairness that comes into play with costs that are going on with regional transit. So I'll be interested to hear the discussions that go on with you guys on that particular topic. So a variety of points that are worth noting. Ourselves at the region, like your municipality, we've been provided funding to help various areas, particularly public health, as well. There's other mitigations that have come into play. It certainly has helped balance the books at Niagara region. We're going to be looking at this in more detail as we move into our operational budget process. The other thing that Mr. Kokopoulos mentioned earlier this evening is that the next thing to be looking at under the public health area is the eventual rollout of vaccines within Niagara region. And that's going to be very thoroughly discussed over the course of the next couple of months, certainly by staff, but bringing it into play with the public health committee. Niagara Region Council, by the way, is the public health board for Niagara. So a lot of this information will end up flowing through us. I hope you guys are satisfied. I know I am. The waste management changes have gone into play, and setting aside the concerns of every second week with the garbage going into play, it's been on time. It's been hitting the places. As we said in our last meeting, I've had a variety of people in town letting me know when items are picked up at their places, and so that seems to be working really well. And let's knock on wood that that's going to continue working really well, and we're moving along with that particular file. The one thing that's coming up in our budget this year that is going to be of interest to all is the Vision Zero and looking at photo radar within our community. I passed along to Mr. Kakopoulos and Mr. Deani an article out of the Spectator today that talked about what's been happening with this in Hamilton. The difficulty, by the way, with Niagara Region, and there's a good news, bad news thing with the way Niagara Region is set up. A lot of these things, the responsibilities are divided out, but the city of Hamilton is just one city, and so when they make some of these decisions, it's a decision that's made at the council level, whereas some of these things require input both from the local area as well as Niagara Region. Part of the budget process that we're seeing come into play, there's a significant capital outlay is going to have to go into play for Vision Zero. So the big thing that the region wants to make sure is that the costs for the capital expenditures and the operations of this are covered, and then whatever other decisions are being made between the municipalities and Niagara Region will come into play. There was a report done, and I know they're going to be coming in to talk about Niagara Region Transit and the transit and demand. The numbers that we have seen so far is that there's actually been an uptick in the use of the solution from year-over-year numbers, which is a good thing. Some amazing numbers coming out of the town of Grimsby when this kicked into play. I was actually completely surprised. And it sort of shows that there was a pent-up demand that was going on in Grimsby that wasn't being filled on that particular item. So anyway, a good news story going on there, and hopefully we're going to be seeing numbers even improve more as we come out of this COVID crisis and see where this is going to be taking us. I wanted to point out to you guys, we've had discussions at the region already about waste management and about water and wastewater treatment. That's the type of information that's going to be coming back to your staff to help you with your own budget process as you're going through these things. But just to let you know, there's a small increase coming through on waste management to the average value home. It's approximately, looking at it, about $3 more or a little bit less than that going into 2021 for the average value home in Lincoln. Water and wastewater, just to let you guys know, there was supposed to have been about a 5.5% increase in water wastewater going into this year, and this was part of the big plan for Niagara Region to start reinvesting in various pieces of infrastructure. We've kind of pulled back our horns on that one, if you want to put it that way. And we heard loud and clear from the mayors in particular when we were discussing water and wastewater rates earlier in the year that this is not a good time to be doing a significant bump. So anyway, it's been mitigated to 2%, and we'll be looking at doing the plan to build the reserve next year going into the 2022 budget. We really don't know where police services is going to land yet. Mayor Easton has had more experience in this one than I have, but suffice it to say, police services does not have, we only have limited a role when it comes to their budget, but we can of course be very strong on them being within the budget guidelines that have been laid out. I want to talk briefly about the hospital fairness formula policy for Niagara Region. We approved at our council meeting on the 19th the fairness formula objective for Niagara Region. And as Mayor Easton and I were both extremely pleased that has gone through. We have an operational budget coming up in January. It'll be January the 14th. Between now and then, there's an additional report coming out on what the region is thinking with regards to funding with West Lincoln Memorial, as well as some additional discussions. The report that came out, there was a variety of options, and anyway, suffice it to say, we're very, very pleased that this is moving itself forward. And I put in a bunch of areas of focus that I'm going to be doing in 2021. So I hope you guys have an opportunity to see that. A couple of the things here that are going to be extremely important. The SWIFT RFP process has come to an end, and contracts are going to be let. I'm going to be able to come with what I consider to be good news to council in the not too distant future. And as well, right across Niagara, there's some very, very positive things going on with the internet and fiber funding in Niagara. So some good news stories coming there. And that's about it. I have one other thing I wanted to mention. Councillor Diana Hewson, Albert Witteveen from Pelham, Diana Hewson, Albert Winneveen from West Lincoln, Wayne Furtick from Grimsby, and myself are going to be doing a virtual town hall. That is going to be on December the 16th. It's going to be from noon to 2 o'clock. It's being coordinated with the Chambers of Commerce in the 4 different areas. We're going to be talking about items of interest for Niagara region and give an opportunity to talk. So I may outreach to Councillor Rangima and Russell about some of their experiences with online town halls, just to see if we have any gotchas that are going on with it. But anyway, it's a point that we've wanted to do, and we want to continue doing this type of thing. One of the things that's a real negative about being a regional councillor is the fact that and thanks to the previous council that was in place, there's very little available to us as far as expenses, and it's a political thing, as well as just the sheer abuse that happened on the previous term of council at Niagara Region. So we're trying to figure out how best to get out some of our messaging that's required in the western part of Niagara as well. So anyway, if you're interested, there will be information coming to you, and certainly through social media as well as in print media. So with that, thank you very much, Mayor Easton.
You're on mute, Mayor Easton.
My apologies. Thank you very much, Councillor Foster. Madam Clerk, I don't see any questions at the moment, but I'm expecting some.
We do. We have Councillor McPherson.
All right, Councillor McPherson, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Foster, for once again bringing us up to date on the region. And I will share with you that I personally witnessed our waste management contractor arriving before the garbage has gone out a couple of times. And in fact, sat for a little bit. We're on a cul-de-sac, and sat for a couple of minutes, and then left because we had 3 of our neighbors without their garbage out, and came back. So they are very prompt, and we're going to have to get our neighbors tuned into what time they have to get their garbage out, because they're here at 7:30 in the morning now. So that's going well. Question for you, Councillor Foster. So in our budget deliberations, we did tackle the Jordan Improvement Project and had a very good presentation prior to, well, I guess it was in November, from the consultants, and went back and forth on some items, and certainly there is a regional component to this. So my question is that a 2021 budget item at the region?
I can't answer that specifically at this point, Councillor McPherson, as I don't know. There were a number of items that affected the Jordan area, particularly on pumping and on a variety of things, particularly environmental assessments. So what I'll do is I will check into that for you and see. Sometimes with these things, they come in through the operational side, and I have not seen the operational budget yet. So I will make sure I have that information available for you.
Great, appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, who is next?
Councillor Timmers.
Councillor Timmers?
Thank you, Mary Easton, through you to Councillor Foster. Thank you very much for being here today or tonight. Great report. Everything is pretty much covered in there, so I don't really have a lot of questions. I do have a comment about the garbage pickup. It's been going really well up here. I personally was the only one in town that didn't have her garbage picked up for 2 weeks, which was fine. And I actually decided I should phone the number, which I have never had to phone the number. And there was a truck at the end of my driveway within 10 minutes of phoning to pick up my bag of garbage. So I was absolutely thrilled. So, and the app is fantastic. It sends you a notification. It tells you what to put out. It's great. So no complaints in this area at all. I haven't heard of any, no one's reaching out with complaints. So as far as the photo radar, so in your report, you're saying that it's included in the budget for 2021. Is that, are you talking specifically for Victoria Avenue and the community safety zone?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the challenges with the photo radar is where they're going to be setting these up to begin with. There's a portable solution that they have, as well as a fixed solution that they're going to be putting in place. I've been informed in discussions with our director of transportation that Victoria Avenue is high on the list. And that, by the way, there's a sequence of steps that go on with these things. You know, community safety zones. One of the reasons why we have not got additional ones put in place yet is there's a process that goes along with the police as we go and move these things out. And then the secondary part is looking at where we're going to with next steps. And my expectation, you know, I never put everything in a 100%, but my very high expectation is that either via portable or via fixed, we're going to be having photo radar on Victoria in and around the Vineland School.
That's good. And you kind of answered my other question about the community safety zone up on Mountain Street by St. Mark's. So there's no update regarding that location right now.
No, there's not. Well, I in my discussions with staff on that one, it's actually slotted to be put in place in 2022. But I'm pushing to see if that comes in a little bit sooner. So that's the type of thing that Mary Easton and I are going to be requesting. Now, the thing is that you got to remember too, is that the current solutions that have been put in place there, and if the police are monitoring it, you know, it's done some good within the area. The flashing lights and the 40 kilometers certainly has people minding their P's and Q's. At least I can say that from when I'm driving through there. So, but anyway, but that's coming along as well. So.
Oh, that's good. And I tend to agree. I drive Mountain Street every single day, and absolutely, the things that have been put in place, I feel, are making a big difference. It's slowing people down. Just one other question. I don't know how many questions, if I'm over my question limit. Regarding SWIFT, you have some in your report about this, but how do you see SWIFT benefiting Lincoln? Can you comment on that at this point? Like, I'm not really sure what it encompasses, what that means for our community.
Sure, that's actually a really good question, Lynn. I have SWIFT is essentially putting fiber into the ground, and the idea is that it's a combination of federal and provincial money, as well as the actual ISP providers providing within it. So it's really a third situation. Now, experience so far within SWIFT across Southern Ontario has been the ISP providers have put in more money than was expected. So there's some significant benefit that comes into play. The idea of having fiber in the ground, number one is it does provide, the ability for even other providers to go and get better into the game as well. So when you have fiber links that are coming into play, you can have appropriate towers that are put up so that places like, and I'll use the example, although NWIC isn't involved with this per se, but NWIC wants to go to somewhere where they have a fiber connection because it makes their solutions so much better type of thing. So the whole idea is to provide quality 50/10 internet connectivity from part to part within Niagara. The problem with SWIFT is the fact that even when this is all said and done, there's going to be areas that are not being properly covered, okay? So, and this is where the municipality is doing the right thing by going and looking at the ICON funding to see whether or not there's some potential monies that are being put into play. I have information from the federal government on their latest policy that's come out within this. Again, it's an area that the municipality may be able to lean into. Suffice it to say, there's going to be a huge discussion at Niagara Region about where we go to next, because SWIFT is actually going after additional funds. Whether or not Niagara needs to remain part of SWIFT to go after funds, or whether Niagara should be doing it on its own. Those are the types of discussions that are going to happen over the next couple of months at Niagara Region to figure out where we're going with this. So I hope I answered your question, Councillor.
No, that was actually very informative. Thank you. I got a much better understanding now. That's it for me. I'm looking forward to your town hall.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Njima. Councillor Njima, you're on mute.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Foster, again for coming in full report and spending so much time with us. The mention about the ward meeting that Councillor Russell and I had, it went well. There was discussion back and forth. Do we have this live? Do we have it online? It was quite a process. And then, it became pretty clear as the numbers were increasing that it was going to be an online thing. So happy to discuss that with you whenever you want. And the other question I had, pardon me?
Any questions?
I do. I have a question regarding also thank you for offering to bring any concerns or questions related to the health committee on our behalf. So my question is, how often do you meet? You meeting tomorrow and then?
Yeah, this is the quote unquote week from hell as far as meetings go at Niagara Region. I have been in 3 already today. Public Works and Public Health is tomorrow. Corporate Services, which I chair, and Planning is on Thursday. We have a variety of regional meetings on Thursday around budget, etc. And then I have a fun day of other items on Friday. So if you don't have something to meet, we meet once a month. The schedule is it's usually every second week, like the second week of the month is when the committees meet. Mm-hmm. But again, if like you don't have something in my hands, like I'll always go to staff and ask if there's specific questions that you're after. Okay, so.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I see I do see Councillor Mikulik.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Regional Councillor Foster. You mentioned the 320 million for the wastewater treatment plant in Niagara Falls, and another number, 1.4 billion with capital over 500 million. Is that 320 included in that 500 million, or is that something different?
It's there's a significant portion within that 500 million that's going towards the wastewater treatment plant. And by the way, this is Mayor Easton and I have had a few discussions on this particular item. This is a major intergenerational piece of infrastructure that's going into place. This is going to be one of the primary pieces for development of the Glendale area of Niagara on the Lake. It's going to be primary for Thorold, which has a massive expansion that's going to be going into place. Niagara Falls, and including the Niagara Falls Hospital, it's all required in order to make all of these things work. When you go through the discussions on this stuff, it's kind of funny. I don't know about you guys, but when you're sitting and you're discussing some of your capital projects and when they drop the figure of 320 million on you, it's kind of like, whoa, okay, I'm just not exactly sure, if I can really even fathom that amount of money that's going into place with this. But you have to trust that the overall plans, the overall planning, the overall understanding of where we're going to as the region are being taken care of with this. So, it's a big ticket item, Mike, but the bottom line is that, it's going to be a critical piece of development into the future for Niagara. So.
Thank you very much for that. So the reason why I asked that question is last week we had some members from the construction community address us with regards to the needs to continue funding municipal projects and, capital infrastructure now more than ever. And I'm just curious if a project of that magnitude in that portion of a capital budget, is there going to be a lack of capital improvements in other areas because of a large singular investment like that? Or will the rest of the regional roads, the rest of the regional capital projects be on target?
That's a really good question, Mike. The reality is that again, there's a portion of this that's coming into play for the 2021 budget. There's a significant amount of money that's being spent on a variety of areas, and what I'll do just to let you know afterwards, when we get to the approval on what's going on with the capital side of things, I'll send that through to this council, or Mayor Easton can send it through. But the idea is that we can show you what it is that's really happening with these things. And yeah, there's an awful lot of investment going on with roads still. There's an awful lot of investment with other capital items as well. So it's a big budget, Mike. So to say the least.
If I could make a comment, Deputy Mayor, I think Councillor Foster would certainly support also the chairs of infrastructure and planning, that when you don't have all the staff that you require in all the departments, whether it's at the town or the region, it doesn't add up to happening in communities, but it can certainly add up to delays. And I think we've seen that. And so this is a huge item. And this is very serious for the future growth of Niagara. And so it's really a matter of, do we have the talent that we need, the expertise that's required to project manage all the different elements of this? And I would say that very consistent with talking about at the town. And so that 320 million is part of the 500 million, which is the total for capital. And I really support everything here. I think that it's extremely to get things right. Because if we don't, there's probably at least a third of the region that will be suffering in the long run. So I'll be happy to bring any of that forward as well as we move forward. Councillor Mikulik, does that end your question?
It does. I just want to, like a project of that magnitude, I just want to ensure that it runs as close to budget as possible, a budgeted amount. Should there be any cost overruns, that it doesn't have an effect, a negative effect on future projects within other municipalities. That's the concern I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you very much, Councillor Foster, for your comprehensive report.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, I see no other hands. I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor Russell to receive and file as information Regional Councillor Foster's update on December 7th, 2020. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
I'll unmute myself. Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Micklick?
Yes.
Councillor Reimer?
Yes.
Councillor Rajima?
Yes.
Councillor Russell?
Yes.
Councillor Timmers?
Yes.
Mayor Easton?
Support.
That carries.
Mayor Easton, if I can make just one last comment, I don't know if you're going to have any more council meetings before Christmas. So if not, or you're having one more? Or do I
I'm
have to?
having one more. You're not
Merry-
getting off.
Merry
We have one on
Christmas.
Yeah, do I
December
have to-
21st.
We'll make a decision on budget stuff. If everything goes well, I'll be at that meeting. So anyway, thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Councillor. For members of the public still watching, before we leave this section, if you are looking for a 50th anniversary Christmas ball, call 563-8205, extend 319. Thank you very much. Now, the next item is notice of motion, and we have none at this time. We move on to item 14, motion to consider confidential. And Madam Clerk, I'm going to suggest that that we take a 7-minute break here, unless there is opposition. All right, so 7 minutes would bring us to 8:11.
Okay.
So I'll see you back here